Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course. We are excited to be here with Christof Melchizedek. He is a leader in spirituality and what he sees in the higher realms. We're here to talk about the galactic upgrades that are happening as we are in this shift of the ages. Christof, welcome. Thank you. It's so good to see you again.
Wow, beautiful to be reconnecting again, and it has been. We were just chatting in the green room 2 or 3 years since we've last had a little check-in, and of course, so much has been happening in the world. So, looking forward to this circle back around to what is.
Yes, I think the last couple of years have been challenging, and in one respect, it is a time that people have allowed themselves to carve out fresh time for themselves, to consider what's important, to consider what they value. It's also been a grieving process as we've lost part of that old world. And in some ways we could say, good, it's about time. But in other ways, we're grieving. We did go through a grieving process. And so here we are now in this incredible opportunity to bring forth new earth solutions. How are you doing? What have you been working on in terms of new solution energy coming in?
Wow, what a beautiful opportunity to speak into the new, because yes, the old ways are falling apart, and I think everyone would be very clear in their observations that the old, let's call it, draconian orders to be passed around the world where people had to obey a certain authority. So people are certainly rejecting the top-down authority and perhaps choosing to open up for a new way of how we work and how we co-create together with, I think, one of the key pieces is sovereignty. And humanity has definitely woken up to the need of being sovereign, of being true to our own choices without having that pushed upon us by an external piece. Now, in terms of your question, how am I contributing to that shift? Well, I feel that, I guess, one of the pieces I hope to and choose to bring is a higher consciousness, a higher frequency of how we choose to live and be. And one of the pieces I like to share with people is that we're moving from hierarchy to synarchy. And what does synarchy mean? It means we lead and we rule together. Hierarchy, of course, has that beautiful people at the top give orders to the people underneath, and there's a top-down directive that must be followed. Whereas synarchy, sin means together, without anarchy means without rulers, without leaders. So we're all being asked to contribute to the world as we want to see it, moving forward. So this piece of all of this is encouraging people to follow the inspiration inside of them and to do what fills them with inspiration. And if we take a look at the word inspiration, inspired, in spirit, it's to feel what you feel in the spirit of your higher self, of what you are leading to bring forth in the world, usually based around direct experience. And so the great invitation for all is to lead from this place of inspiration, what inspires us to move forward. And for anyone that has children, or is at least contemplating the world we wish to leave behind us, hopefully it's a motivating force to move us into action, to lead by our inspiration, so the children can live in a better world. And we are certainly in this epoch of time that's had much prophecy, as you're aware. A golden eon is on our doorstep if we're brave enough to knock on its door and open it and walk through.
Yes, brave enough to open it and walk through it and create with the inspired action from within us. So this really requires integrity, and a higher self-embodiment sort of integrity, where we are inspired from the higher realms or from a heart connection, and it's not a mind connection anymore. Or is it? What would you say about the ways that we get into inspired action?
There's a beautiful quote by Patanjali that hopefully I can download for you and recall the entire piece. Patanjali was the writer of the original Yoga Sutras 2,000 years before Christ. So he's got some ancient wisdom. When you are inspired, is the first piece of this prose. And inspired comes back to that root word in spirit. When you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitations and your consciousness expands in every direction. And you find yourself to be in a new, great, wonderful world. Dormant forces and faculties become alive, and you find yourself to be a far greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. And I think that when each of us lead from that place of being inspired, we can all transcend our limitations and have our consciousness just well up with amazing ideas and ways that we can improve to thrust us forward in this new world that we're being invited to create and co-create.
So what do you do to keep yourself elevated out of the old collapsing 3D realm and into that inspired action? Because some would be intimidated by that, or feeling stuck, or feeling blocked. What do you do?
Inspiration and thrust, I can talk into my own personal, process and regimes, but it's very simple, really. You have to look after your physical vessel is the first thing. And a lot of people in the spiritual community often forget their physical body. And to give us the energy and the momentum that we need to look after the holographic projector of the physical. So we're almost like this, the physical body is like a center point for our higher consciousness to come through and to flash through. So you have to look after the vessel. So I have a little morning routine. It's not complex. For me, it's just a simple waking up, taking my drink of vitamin C in the morning, taking my supplements. I usually fast in the morning, take my bone broth as I'm speaking to you because it's early morning here. And my exercise tends to come about 2 or 3 o'clock, and I eat organic food. I eat the good combination of vegetables and organic fish and meats. So the physical body is a really, in my world, an important piece that gives us the energy to then follow the inspiration, because without being able to follow through of where the consciousness is taking us, it's all a bit limiting. And then in terms of where does this consciousness want to lead me now, what's happened, of course, is that we're having a higher vibratory frequency come through our planet due to our sun's position through the solar system. Our sun is, and our solar system is actually part of the Pleiades. It's the 8th star of the Pleiades. This is why some people talk of the 7 sisters. The 7 sisters are, of course, the other suns within the Pleiadian system. Our particular sun is moving through the galactic realms as part of the Pleiades, and the central sun of the Pleiades Alcalon is sending through this incredible burst of energy, and because of our particular place right now, we're in a corridor of consciousness, a runway where for 2,000 years now, our sun is within this particular band. It's called, the photon band. This photon band is sending forth very, very, very fast wavelengths. We've just come out of what some call the galactic night. That's 10,500 years of what some may call darkness. And we're into a particular space within our solar system's trajectory through the Milky Way galaxy of a very high vibratory frequency. These faster wavelengths are bursting their way through our sun and bursting their way through into the earth. And these faster vibrations are spontaneously awakening people's bioenergy field and widths of our consciousness. For our consciousness has dropped down from source and it's come all the way down to here in the third dimension, like a compression spring. But of course, as you compress a spring, it begins to hold enormous amounts of kinetic potential, shall we call it. As that spring compresses, it holds a lot more energy. And this is what it is like with our consciousness into these bodies. Our bodies hold enormous amounts of light potential. We are, to be considered probably, in my opinion and many others who are seeing humanity's potential from the higher realms, the highest energetic potential packets of light in the known galaxies. We are just now waking up to our fullest potential of our consciousness and light. And it's up to us what we choose to do with that bundle and packet of very highly intense light and consciousness packaged up in a physical form. And our body is this wonderful opportunity to have an experience with the soul as a co-creator, to choose what to do with this intensity of light, of consciousness that's around us, if we open up to the potentials. So in the future, what I see is these new beings, these younglings who are being born into this generation at least, bridging and are bridges to the higher vibratory frequencies.
One thing that we hear a lot of is if this light is coming in and there's new light coming in from being in this photon belt, what can one do? You mentioned taking care of the physical body. What else can one do to anchor more light?
Well, it's very simple in my opinion. Quite often people in the spiritual community get focused on chasing the light, but the fastest way to accrete more light, and accretion is just simply the more embodiment of that light, is to navigate into the shadows. The shadows are the parts of ourselves that we don't like to look at, that we don't wish to or choose to step into. These are our patterns, some of our pieces that we are choosing to avoid all our life, the woundings from our childhood. There are unhealed aspects of ourselves that need to be worked upon, that need to be healed. And the fastest way to grow is to walk into those shadows, is to walk into these aspects of the self that we wish to not see. We always have a highly idealized self-image of how we choose to see ourselves in the light. But who are we underneath the light, in the shadows? What are the pieces of us that we don't like to see, that we choose to ignore? These are the pieces of the puzzle that give us the greatest growth. And the way to track it is that if something is presenting in the energy field as a reflection, because life doesn't happen to us, it happens through us. We are holographically projecting our reality through our bioenergy field DNA and consciousness. Anything that comes to us is coming to us for a very distinct purpose, for learning and growth. So that when we get triggered by one of these pieces that are coming to us, it is an opportunity for growing. And when you can tune into what's underneath it, because on top we have our thoughts and our feelings that are the pieces that we're very aware of when we get triggered. But underneath that, there's a belief that's been formulated in our childhood that makes us think and feel this way. How they were when we were in the womb, in the first few years of life. These first few years are really key. All of our chakras are developing, and all of our chakras do not have screens on them until about 7 years of age. So we are literally absorbing every single frequency in the field into our unconscious mind. And from that place of the unconscious mind wells up our hidden memories and our hidden pieces that create the triggers or the wounds that create the triggers from when something presents itself in the field. So the path of embodying ourselves more, of utilizing this energy that's coming in, is that the slower, denser wavelengths of light that we may hold as pockets inside of ourselves, these slower vibratory wavelengths, are being hit by the faster ones that are coming into the planet. So these faster wavelengths, which are hitting the lower, slower, denser ones of our pain, of our wounds, are often just bringing them to the surface. So, people may be experiencing greater degrees of being triggered, right? And that triggeredness, of course, is opportunities for us to work through that process of going into the thoughts and the feelings. Underneath that, there's a belief that must be there that created these thoughts and feelings, like I'm not safe, or men are not safe, or my partner doesn't love me, or a slow conditioning process of what you did not receive, which you needed to as a soul, or a direct trauma. So many people often look back into their life and say, yes, but I had a good life, a good childhood. My parents didn't abuse me, they loved me, and I had a very, idyllic, in many people's minds, childhood, because they didn't receive the physical abuse that unfortunately some people receive. That's true, but what is really needed by the soul is something a little bit more than often many of us have received. And we have been set into this conditioning container that creates unmet needs. And it's these unmet needs of what we didn't receive that often provide the fabric, framework, and foundation for our irritations and upsets. So underneath that, we have the belief, we have the unmet need or the direct trauma, and underneath that is the core, and that's the wound. And the wound is the piece that we've been avoiding our whole life. And around that, we have a very sophisticated set of defenses. These energetic, physical, mental, emotional defenses are the ways that we react to the energy when it's presented into the field that's looking to come into the wound, to push it back, to prevent that energy from coming into the pain. And the pain is simply we either weren't able to embody fully because our home life in the first 9 months in the womb and the first 9 months out of the womb was chaotic, and our consciousness didn't feel safe enough to come in. So one of the natural reactions of a bioenergy field on consciousness is to leave. So the people who have what we might call the leaving pattern feel safer in the spiritual dimension than the physical dimension. So when they get triggered, up there they go into the spirit world rather than being here in the physical. If the child through that period of time in the first 9 months, the first year, felt safe enough to embody, the next piece of this way consciousness move is to have the energy come down and then into the core. And if the young child of us didn't feel that we were getting our needs met by our mother, and of course our parents are busy in life, they might not have had a chance to fully, the mother might not have had a chance to fully tend and care for all the child's needs. The child perceives that they have not got their needs met. And so in this emotional or energetic reaction, they might create a bit of a pulling pattern from others. I don't get my needs met through source, i.e. our mother when we're very young, or a father, but I have to pull on that energy from others. And so these people are caught in a pattern where they energetically pull on others, their partner, their friends, their boss, whatever it comes from, that they get their energetic needs met from the pulling the energy from other people rather than having it come through them from source. In the stage of development then, which comes down and into their core, the next piece is that the energy, ideally through childhood, comes out starts coming from your core out. In this stage of development, usually about sort of into the 3 and 4 years old, ideally the child is learning to be able to have their individuation, how they can push themselves or create themselves into the world. If the parents are, let's call it, more strict and don't allow the child to individuate and keep them contained, the energy gets trapped on the edge of their field, and they have what we might call more of an enduring pattern, because the parents don't allow the energy of their consciousness to drop in, come into their core to know themselves as connected, and then have that energy come out. It gets trapped in the edges of the field, and they get stuck in this stage of ideally come out and then go out and create in the world. And the people who get stuck into that pattern end up not trusting the world, and they end up projecting their energy into the future and into others in more of an aggressive pattern. And that energetic pattern of projecting into the future, or trying to control the world around them, or trying to control others, is this pattern of energy that doesn't get stuck here but comes up and out and over into others, where they don't really feel safe and they don't trust the world. And the final pattern that people get stuck in energetically is a rigidity. And the rigidity is rather than having the energy come up and out, they get stuck with walls between them, between you, me, or other people, where they have a rigidity, where they're unable to enter into a, let's call it a flow state. Each of these stages of development as a child ideally allows the consciousness to embody, to fill itself up from the center, to be able to move the energy out into the world, and then to co-create the world in an open fluid space. And due to our conditioning, we often get trapped in one of these stages of the way that the consciousness and soul begins to mature, and it creates a pattern. And that energetic pattern is the way, when we get triggered, we respond or react to what's happening in the field. For example, the leaving pattern gets triggered, or maybe they just close themselves off and have a wall between them and what's going on with the trigger. Whatever way people have experienced their childhood with the way that their parents were, is often the way they get pulled into these patterns. And these patterns are responsible for the way that we react to different situations in our life back into the pattern. It's a very ingrained, let's call it, energetic reaction. And when you enter into a greater degree of spiritual maturity, you can begin to see these patterns in play, and can begin to identify them and do the deeper healing at that particular stage of childhood of those needs that you didn't receive when you were young and didn't get met. And that's kind of like a little bit of this, how do I use the light coming into the planet? I guess it's a little bit of a circuitry route to come back to that piece, working on the shadows, identifying the patterns of either leaving and going up into the spirit world, pulling on other people by not having your needs met, or having blocking the energy, or aggressive in your reactions, or just having walls between you and others.
Well, in this process of looking so deeply into ourselves, you've developed many tools for people to be assisted with this, and actually facilitating this this clearing. It really is like a clearing of these patterns, an identification and a clearing, an identification and release of these patterns. Talk to us about the audios that you've created. This is like the top of your audios, the top most beneficial audios.
Sure, many people love healing technology, and there's many ways that we can keep improving our bioenergy field and consciousness. One of the ones is receiving energetic healing. When I found out about energy healing, it was like the ultimate cheat code. These cheat codes in life are little pieces that allow us to accelerate in our development. And really, when I'd spent my life in the physical world of training, to improve people's life with the physical body. When I found out about energy medicine, I became completely mesmerized and hooked about the potentials and possibilities of working with energy as a ways of changing our life. So these audio transmissions are little packets and pockets of energy transmissions designed to increase the amount of consciousness and light that you can hold, and to work their way through a process of providing certain healings. And I guess one of the things that's on offer today is to be able to, if it's in your great resonance and you're feeling a connection with some of the pieces I'm sharing, and you wish to elevate your life, the only way to change your existing reality is to change your vibration, is to raise up your frequency. As you hold a higher vibration, you immediately begin anchoring in and bringing towards you a higher possibility of a higher timeline, person, event, experience for yourself when you can hold a higher vibratory set point. These audio transmissions are just simply designed as healing technologies to be able to support you and sustain you at higher frequency levels. And I think I've just asked my team to put together our our top 10. Andrea, my manager, was gracious enough to just go through our catalogue and pick out her favourites. And so there's a bunch of healing technologies here that are available to be able to support you for various purposes. One of them, for example, is called the Achilles Protocol. The Achilles Protocol, of course, the Achilles heel is considered the anchor point or the stability point for us as humans. You might have heard of the Achilles being the foundational root for much. This particular protocol is designed as transmission, is designed to bring you far greater stability in your life, being less reactive to what is going on in the world. And I was given this particular protocol by a group of non-physical beings in the higher dimensions who sent us this as a gift to humanity, to basically be able to be less reactive by holding a greater degree of stability. And this is done through having a greater balance between the masculine side and the feminine side. Whereas the masculine side is looking forward into the future, the feminine side of us is looking back into the past, to balancing these out in ourselves so we can be more centered, more stable. There's a stress reduction protocol which removes a lot of accumulated stress from the energetic system. It really works with the adrenal glands. There's a brain neurological upgrade that is designed to rewire the way our brain's thinking to be in a beautiful harmony with the heart. There's a coherence transmissions which are designed to move you from being in a triggered state to being more tranquil, to be able to bring us into a greater degree of being centered. There's a sovereignty transmission that's designed to pull back all the lost aspects of our consciousness, of our bioenergy field, of ourselves into us, and removing all sorts of external interferences. So there's a number of different audio transmissions that are designed to be able to accelerate us forward. And our community in our world seems to love them. If you're drawn to working with very high quality, high production audios as a form of meditation, we're blessed enough to work with a top sound engineer who's been up for all sorts of awards in terms of Emmys and these types of things. He's a very high quality sound producer. So we've got a very high degree of quality of these audio transmissions designed to support someone's evolving consciousness.
Beautiful, thank you. Our viewers and listeners can check that all out here on this webpage, and we're excited to offer this. All of your programs in the past are exquisite and produced professionally well, and they really are profound, and they do assist in facilitating great transformation. So let's continue a little bit more. We were talking about hierarchy to synarchy, and how integrity is a huge piece of it. with what's going on in the world and with the light coming in on the photon belt, it seems as if there's a pressure cooker for people to surrender to love. I mean, could it be as simple as surrendering to love? Sure, we have to clear all the baggage and the triggers, what you spoke about, but on a greater scale, the surrender to love and integrity, the integrity that one must bring forth is key. And in the collective, as we look out at the world, it does appear that there is less of a tolerance for misbehaving humans. Like more and more of us are getting this, right?
Yeah.
More people are getting it. So what do you see if you are a visionary looking into the future at these aspects playing out?
Well, I love how you brought this around by suggesting we need to surrender to love, because love is ultimately who we are. We are love. There's nothing but, we are nothing but love. That is what the prime creator or God, whatever it is you label that invisible force that runs through everything, is imbued with love. So our conditioning is simply preventing us from coming in and experiencing ourselves as love. And when we experience ourselves as nothing but pure love, really there's nothing but to surrender to it. But the piece that you brought up around integrity is aligning ourselves with our values. And I think what's happened in these last 2 or 3 years is that the world has awoken to the fact that there is potentially a external force or authority that's telling us how to behave, right? How we need to act, what we have to, how we have to be. And certainly everyone in the last 2 years has seen many civil liberties of what we might call freedom being pulled of the rug underneath our feet. And what it's meant is that people have had to claim their sovereignty, had to claim their freedom, have had to make choices, decisions, often around their biological choice point. And certainly as the piece came in around the vaccination, people had to really choose, because it was thrust upon us from an external source that we had to do this, otherwise many people had to have a choice. Lose their job, lose their livelihood, lose their income, or have something that someone else told us what to do. Now, what I feel what's happened through this process is that the world has got less trust in external authority, and there's a scale, assessment scale, quite famous in the world called the Alderman Trust Barometer. The Alderman Trust Barometer is at the lowest it's ever been in the history. They've been doing this for 30 years. And this trust has been lost in government, in media, and in corporations, and in other big players in the world that are creating how we live. This trust is at an all-time low. Then you add in these other pieces of the puzzle. For example, I don't know if you're aware, but Apple, Mac, or Apple Mac, back about a year and a half ago maybe, brought forth an update to their new operating system, iOS 14 and iOS 15. And what they did is that they gave people the ability to opt out of sharing their third-party data with the outside world. Now, commentators in the marketing space, why this is significant is because before this update, you didn't have the option. Whenever you were on your phone, all of that information and data, where you were browsing the internet or Facebook, was automatically pushed to big tech of Google and Facebook, etc. They automatically received all of your browsing habits. And what the CEO of Apple decided to do is that we're going to make Apple a privacy company. And so they created the next update of iOS 14. People were allowed to choose whether you would allow your personal browsing habits to be sent to Facebook and Google. At the time, commentators in the marketing space said, we think around 10% or 20% of people will choose to opt out of that. 88% of the population opted out of having their data shared with big tech. This has created a fundamental shift. I feel this piece, the lack of trust, the timing of it, just outside of the pandemic when we had many of our liberties removed from us, created this desire for people that I value my privacy more than I value having my data shared. What I feel this has created is it created a mass consciousness sentiment shift around what is valued. And what is valued more now is my own personal integrity and privacy, and not having third parties coming in and spying on me. I choose to live my life in a way that I don't have to share everything what's kind of going on. So this piece of the shift on the planet has really been a catalyst, I call it, for the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening has been people waking up to the reality that I choose now to be more sovereign, to be more, I want to claim what's right for me, and I don't want to share every little single piece of my life. So the collapsing of the economy, the shutting down of all the places, the inability to go out, the having to stay at home, the forced vaccinations according to what industry you were in, has all served the purpose of waking people up to the need of creating a greater sense of sovereignty and freedom in one's life. And I feel that this piece has been a very necessary piece for humanity, because it's kind of like, for me, being in a relationship that you don't really like with authority, with the hierarchy, with government, who have previously to this experience been in our lives in a way where we've tolerated. And this toleration is like being in a relationship. You don't really love the person deeply, but you're in it because you're in it. And but when the relationship turns a little bit kind of abusive, that often for many people, when they're in an abusive relationship, gives them the motivation to get out. And I think what we've seen is people realize that they're in an abusive relationship with authority, and them choosing now to opt out of the existing structures. So what we've witnessed now is what you may have heard in the media is the Great Resignation. People are just not going back to work in the same way as they were. They're not choosing to turn up to clip the ticket to get paid to live their life in that particular way. It doesn't have meaning anymore. They are awakening to the fact that I want to try to choose my life on my terms. So with all these little pieces that have been going on in the world with the shutdowns and then the lack of choice, people are starting to see and realize there's been an abusive relationship. I'm choosing to claim my life again. And so people who are employers, you might be witnessing this in America, are struggling to find staff for jobs that are meaningless for them. People are opting out of sharing their private data. They are choosing to sort of live life more on their terms. This is only going to, in my opinion, accelerate and grow as people seek for more meaning in their life, of their purpose, of what they're here to, who they're here to be, what they're here to contribute to the world. And I think this is only just the beginning. It's very possibly a very exciting time.
Yes, and if we keep that in our focus, we can see there's such hope there and beautiful things there. And what a shift, what a shift indeed. As you said, 88% of the people opted out. There's a whole industry called data mining around this, and
Yes.
it's at college level instruction. So that is going to ripple out and affect even those industries. And I think it's great because it is kind of creepy when you can go look at something or purchase something online somewhere, and the next thing you know, on maybe an article that you're reading online, there's ads, and their ad is selling you something that you looked at. And
That's exactly it. And I've got a great story for you on this piece. That happened to me when my sister came 3 years ago. We were sitting in our house, and she was visiting me from the Gold Coast, Australia. And I don't know how we got onto this topic, but nonetheless, we were talking and having a conversation over a cup of tea about indoor skydiving. Right, so how do you do indoor skydiving? I mean, I like never heard of such a thing. And she was telling me about the wind, the amazing wind turbines that come up from the ground, and you can fly in these suits, and the air comes through you, and you're sailing through the air like all of that. And we had about a 5-minute discussion on indoor skydiving. Anyway, well, I've never heard of such. Well, when I come, I'd love to go and do that. And it ended up a year or two later, I went down to Queenstown in New Zealand, and they happened to have a freshly installed indoor skydiving facility that I went and got to experience it for myself. But about 30 minutes to an hour after that conversation that we had, she was on her phone and she was browsing through Facebook, and what came up but an ad for the indoor skydiving facility in the Gold Coast, which she'd never ever seen before. So what Facebook had done is, through the Messenger app, had installed that listening device where the audio software was listening to our conversation. The algorithm picked up the conversation and was able to present it to the advertiser. So for those of you who are maybe in personal development or evolution, what's happened since Apple has created this opt-out in 88% of the population, it's very hard to target people now. Targeting has become more and more difficult because Facebook and Google don't have the analytical information that they used to have to be able to serve up ads to what you're looking for. I think it's great because it's giving people a choice of their sovereignty over their information and data and conversations. It's more difficult now for marketers to find their audience, but that's the way it is on the other side. But we've got greater sovereignty of our conversations, I think, which is important.
Yes, and so, the marketing aspect, talk about 3D and totally structured and almost scientific in a way. There's other ways to reach people. The good old days before we had any of this internet marketing, maybe we're going to return to that and more of a humane, interconnected way to approach someone, or maybe it's even from a higher level of appealing to how we can assist someone rather than taking their secretly taking their conversations and then sending someone over. I recall my husband and I, we were sitting in our kitchen and we were thinking, we've been in this house a while and we haven't had our roof fixed ever. We've never had our roof redone. And so when we bought the house, it hadn't been done for 10 years. And so we've been there another 11 years. So here's about 20 years without a roof being repaired or fixed or resurfaced. And I asked, do we need a new roof? Do we need to repair our roof? Do we need to resurface our roof? 15 minutes later, a knock on our door.
Wow. Well, someone coming to the cold call.
Someone coming to our door. I just found that was way more than coincidence. It was.
It's a little creepy, isn't it? When it's a little bit creepy, and this is exactly why the public have decided that we don't want that anymore in our life. And I actually think that if it wasn't for the lockdowns and this awareness of what's actually happening, it wouldn't have transpired in that way. But I mean, you think about 88% of the population now had to actually go into their settings and change something so their data doesn't get shared. It's an incredible statistic of the way where the mass consciousness on the planet is waking up to no longer accepting the authority of what must happen, but choosing a different path. And I feel it's simply the beginning, and this piece we find ourselves in and trying to live in combination with technology. Technology is either going to be our master or our servant. And this little piece here is hopefully witnessing to us that consciousness is expanding and rising to a certain point where humanity is choosing more for it to be our servant than our master.
Very good. And let's not forget, no matter what, if it's human or AI, there's a level of respect, equal respect with it. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, let's say marketing has changed to a point now where you can't force things down people's throats anymore. People are not, responding to that. People are very wary about giving their email address to anything. So you have to be respectful if someone's giving you the confidence to provide a source of contact, that you don't abuse those rights, and anyone that does is quickly getting booted out because people aren't tolerating what they tolerated 10 years ago.
And that's the shift that we're in. And again, it comes to personal sovereignty, integrity. Through the last couple of years, when we saw when we were in our homes and not really being able to move too much around the planet, when I did move and I did get outside nature, if people went back to nature, that's a beautiful thing. A respect for nature all over again. I saw mothers and teenage daughters walking hand in hand. I heard more "I love yous." See, I'm going to cry now. I heard people saying "I love you" to each other in public more than I've ever heard. And that to me is an indicator, it's a sign. And so it's a challenge, but when we look through it all, when we look through all of the information that's out there, we can read between the lines and we can see the shift that's underway. And there is a shift, and it's all good, and it's coming back to personal sovereignty and integrity, and most importantly, love, and the love that we bring forward and our natural state of being. We're just catching up with the rest of the universe, aren't we?
Well, the rest of the universe is literally cheering us on, and I'm blessed enough to be in contact with many beings in the higher dimensions from other galaxies and other star systems, and literally there's so much observation as to what is happening here on the planet. Previously, they kind of viewed us as biological robots. Just, Earth wasn't such an interesting place, but it's getting so much attention now because what's happening on Earth is literally rippling out to all the other different star systems. What is happening here on the planet is important in the entire multiverse. The different universes, the different galaxies, the different star systems are being affected by what's going on here because we're in the physical realm. And this awakening that is happening is being met with great excitement, around the galaxies. And the simple acts of kindness that you spoke on, I also witnessed during that time. Families, and in my little village where I live, I live 15 minutes south of a city that's got about 75,000 people, and then our village has got maybe 1,500 people. So it's quite small. I witnessed during that lockdown exactly what you witnessed. People being together, families walking together, families cycling together, people taking a pause from the busyness of life that had people got caught up in this degree of separation from each other. And it was beautiful to just see families together, fathers who were usually absent because of the necessity of work, being with their children and spending quality time. It was a revelation for people to take an enforced, and where we were, it was a couple of months, 2 months of lockdown, was extraordinary for many people. It was also challenging for people where, I really felt for families living in apartment buildings who couldn't get out, and it was a difficult time. But I always feel that the biggest gains in our life come with challenge and adversity. We have to step up and step out and do things in a different way. And all of that 2 or 3 year period has created a forced awareness. It made everyone stop and think about what's really important in life. And you're right. Many people came back to love, to really loving and appreciating the people in my life. And I long hope that humans can continue this connection that we have with people that really matter in our life, our families, and taking that time out and spending the time. And I think often in life people get the formula wrong. It's not the quality time at home and quantity time at work. You have to flip it. It's quantity of time at home and quality of time at work, which is really the true formula for happiness. You spend much more time focused with your family, and when you turn up to work, you make it happen, get it done in as short a possible time, and get on being with the people that really matter. And we witness that in that period. I truly hope that humans can keep that love and keep that connection and keep these pieces of what really, telling someone you really love them and really sharing from some sort of emotional depth. what really is important in one's life is what's really key.
Yes, beautifully said. And on the flip side of that, the old patterns that no longer served were just erased, dissolved, quit, ended. So that's another beautiful side of all of it. All right. Well, Christof Melchizedek, thank you so much for being here. As we wrap up today, any final thoughts or words of wisdom as we move forward during these times?
Thank you for that opportunity. Let's see what comes through. So my great wish for anyone who's listening to this or watching this audio video transmission, my final piece is to really tune into the luminosity of our hearts and to lead our life by inspiration, where we feel inspired to go by making a difference. And ultimately, we all want to make a difference in the lives of others. And it starts with our family. That's the key to it. The key and the foundational key that sets everything in motion to a better world in the future is really placing that time, energy, and care into our family. And the family is the bedrock of society. And there's been so much, attempts at division in the family. But if we can come back to our husband, our wife, our children, and put as much effort and care into making a beautiful artistic expression of love in our family, this will well up and fill that kind of core piece. And then ultimately what happens is that as your consciousness evolves, you can begin to move from the love and care into your family, into the love and care of your community, the people that live close to you, around, turning up and caring for them, sharing and being able to give the people around you love once the needs of your family have been met. And as your consciousness continues to evolve and grow, that will, organically spread out from your community to your country, to the people who are around you further. Your influence can begin to affect others and then ultimately into the world. But if you can't give it to yourself, and you can't give that love and that connection and that intimacy to your family, there's no point diligently slaving for the masses if you can't give it to those of you that really matter, and those are the people at home. So cherish your loved ones at home, really share the depth of your emotional love and connectedness with them, and then others. I try to make it a daily little test for myself. Can I make someone smile today? Can I make a stranger smile? And I love playing that little game at the supermarket checkout, at the cafe, at someone sitting next to me at the cafe. I'm trying to, make their world, pop a little bit by being a little bit bubbly in someone's life. And if we can do it to our family, and ultimately we have enough energy to do it to a stranger, to someone in our life, in our community, this is how we change the world. It starts individually and evolves out from there as this beautiful spark of being inspired and sharing love ripples around the world. It's like lighting a candle, and from that one, the many can be lit. It's all about how we choose to turn up.
Beautiful. Thank you for those inspiring words. They are love bombs. We can give love grenades. That's not a good word. We'll have to find another high vibrational word, but these are love plumes, love volcanoes, love explosions, love waterfalls, love
Be
waterfalls.
like, be like the sun. That's the Christ consciousness is like the sun. It's just always giving that light and that warmth and that heat. And then, everyone is like a flower, and a flower will bloom in its own timing when given enough sun. And every winter comes with a spring, and all you need to be is like the sun, which is unconditional in the giving of love. And when you come from that place of being unconditional with love, there's no need to control, there's no need to try to force, because a flower will always open in its own divine right timing with enough love, with enough sun.
Beautiful. And this is the shift that is underway. Thank you, Christoph, for allowing
Thank
us
you.
to feel into it on a deeper level. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much for your continued work on the planet, Lauren. You've been interviewing luminaries around the world for many, many years. And these interviews and these little pockets of consciousness, I know, are having a big effect and a big ripple around the world. And it's always a pleasure to reconnect and have these opportunities of conversations of consciousness. All my love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste.